call.
When all that you see
are actors on your television singing off key.
What savvy, well-versed heroes can settle this score? Once more with TV.
Welcome, couch gags and couch hags, to Once More with TV, a podcast celebrating TV musical episodes from the sublime to the subprime.
And definitively ranking them using every theater child's worst nightmare, math.
Oof. I'm your co-host, Liza Truschel, she, her, and I am a Julie Andrews enthusiast.
And I'm your co-host, Alex Kovnadsky, he, him, and I think The Simpsons has too many episodes. That's a scalding hot take.
Okay, yeah, wow. Fox has a strong disagree on that one. I think they renewed it for like season fucking 40 the other day.
Yeah, what do they know? I don't know. But this week we're doing My Fair Laddy, Simpsons season 17, episode 12, aired in 2006. Liza, what is your relationship with The Simpsons?
This is about the time I was watching The Simpsons in my life, actually, I would say, from between early aughts. Let's just say early aughts. My family had many DVD box sets of the early Simpsons seasons. So watched a good amount when everything was still much pointier and like uglier, like the older animation. But yeah, I've seen a good amount. It was something that my whole family could agree on watching, which was pretty rare for us. So I think that's how it worms its way into a lot of American households. I do, of Matt Groening's work, I do generally prefer Futurama.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What about you? What have you seen? What have you not seen?
Yeah, similar boat. I've watched all of Futurama and prefer that a little bit more. The Simpsons I watched really late. I didn't watch The Simpsons at all until like college. And even then I watched maybe 2 seasons worth, like maybe the first couple seasons. And I really liked it. I remember going, oh, every episode is very funny. They have a lot of great goofs, but I think it's just a little repetitive for me. But obviously
I'm sorry, you think after 35 years they're not finding fresh content? That's crazy.
Yeah, my scalding hot take, I think there's too many of those, The Simpsons. But I'll watch like an equal amount of anime, so I don't know what I'm saying, honestly. I think The Simpsons is very good. I think it's not necessarily particularly for me, but I do think it's funny most of the time.
Same, I think. I think that's a relatively good take. We'll talk about it. Some things about it, since it's been on so long, some things have aged better and worse than other things. There's a degree there. And I think for me, what was surprising about watching this was I think I forgot how harebrained The Simpsons is. Like how fast it is and how straight jokes will go off on a tangent for a little while. And they're like 5 plots an episode. Like I was surprised at the number of subplots that like kept coming up here. Yeah, the only word I could think of was harebrained. It was really
I think that's right. I think that's right. I think the thing that I've really liked about The Simpsons and Futurama for that matter is that it's like very smart, quick dialogue about very dumb things. We will talk about the dumbest stuff and have the dumbest jokes in it, but it's so quick and so sharp and witty at times that I'm like, what's going on here? And I can't keep up half the time.
Yeah, it kind of leaves you reeling. That's half the humor, is that you're reeling from the last scene and you're thrown into something brand new now. Yeah, the other thing, my other connection to The Simpsons is actually I played a lot of Simpsons Hit and Run as a child.
Classic game.
An incredible game. It deserves a mention.
It really does. It really does. And it deserves a revamp. I want them to remake that game. And I know I'm not the only person who feels that way.
Out of that game. No, you are not the only person that feels that way. I would play the fuck out of it if it was available right now. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. GTA with The Simpsons? Come on.
Yeah. It was amazing. I will say that as like a tiny nerdy child, I actually used to drive according to traffic laws. Like a lot of the time I'd make a game out about like how well can I obey traffic laws, because I hated running from the police because I'm a fucking nerd.
I can relate. I've definitely done that before in games too. But then there comes a certain point where it becomes more frustrating than fun, and then you just break all the rules.
And then you just
it's
bulldoze
fun.
through people's homes.
Exactly.
There comes a point when you're going to drive through that tobacco field and just absolutely obliterate townsfolk on your way.
Exactly. This episode is, like we said, titled My Fair Laddy, and it very heavily plays on the musical My Fair Lady, so I think it's worth a shout. What's your relationship to My Fair Lady, the musical, Liza?
I have a suspicion that I was named after the main character of My Fair Lady, and that my mother will not admit it. This is a long-standing fight. She claims that the name just kind of came to her out of nowhere, and that she just thought it sounded like classy and I guess like refined. And I think that this musical is where she sort of got that idea. Like she thought it was refined yet sassy, I think was kind of her wording on it, which is like, that's the plot of My Fair Lady. And that is a character named, I'm not an Elizabeth, I'm an Eliza. That's it. So yeah, I have a sneaking suspicion that my mom just won't admit that and my mom is a noted Julie Andrews enthusiast,
Amazing.
by the way. So yeah, I think that this show might actually be my namesake, which is a wild thing to think, because I also don't actually know the show that well. I've seen it a few times. I've seen the film that Julie should have been in, and I really enjoy it, but I wouldn't say I know it overly well. How about you?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, when I think of you, Liza, as your origin story, I do think of like a poor Cockney woman that is just trying as hard as possible.
Yeah, that is the vibe I've been cultivating for many years. So thank you.
Yeah, a vibe you've been cultivating as like a repression, right? Like I'm repressing the Cockney origins of myself. But My Fair Lady actually also isn't a show I know super well. I've seen the movie a long time ago. I really love I Could Have Danced All Night and On the Street Where You Live. Like I think those songs are pretty timeless and classic. But I really don't know the show super well, and did have to kind of remember what the plot points were of the musical while watching this. But it is a pretty direct one-to-one in this Simpsons episode.
Yeah, I mean, we've got, to transition to it, we've got groundskeeper Willie, who admits at one point that he has no last name. We got groundskeeper Willie, our Scottish groundskeeper, whose entire life is at the elementary school in Springfield. And Lisa decides that she's going to make him into a refined gentleman before the science fair, which is a gala.
I love that, actually. I love that bit.
I honestly, no notes. That was incredible. That is the A plot of this episode. As I mentioned, like Simpsons, you just get wild B plots. We open with Bart and a very sadistic new gym teacher.
Yeah. It was weird. Yeah, the A plot is My Fair Lady. The B plot is Bart trying to get back at his gym teacher, and then the C
but
plot
kind of
is
only for the first like 2 minutes. Like it's kind of the cold open, and then it is the impetus for groundskeeper Willie's home is destroyed by Bart's frozen dodgeball full of water.
And that's what I had a note about too, because the other plot point is Homer kind of repping blue jeans.
No, blue pants. I actually
I'm sorry, blue
couldn't
pants.
get enough of that storyline. I was laughing the whole time. It really caught me off guard. Homer rips his only blue pants, and as like an animated character, he can only wear blue pants, and has to go find more. And the scene where he's walking through all of like the neon signs of like no blue pants. I was earnestly laughing pretty hard.
I was so confused, though, to your point, that they completely drop those by the end of it. And it really, like, for, like, the first third, we have all three.
Yeah, they kind of keep the blue pants one. I mean, like, at the end, there's that he's gotten rid of the ad that he drew on his head. And he's drawn other ads on his body. That's sort of the stinger with him and Marge.
Yeah.
He's drawn other ads on his body. One says eat Maine potatoes, but that's actually just a reminder to him to eat Maine potatoes, which he keeps by the bed. I was tickled by that.
I know, it's super funny, but I think that is the last time we see that, and I guess he just has those tattoos now, and of course it's
Forever,
going to be
yeah.
washed away for the next episode. I think I'm kind of unfamiliar with Simpsons as a format of like, how do they end their plots? Because it seems like they didn't really for those two.
Well, there's sort of a there's kind of a nod to it, actually. I think it might be Principal Skinner, who, when groundskeeper Willie goes back to his job, and he says, in the great tradition of returning things to as they were, groundskeeper Willie is like now
That's a
our
good point.
groundskeeper again. Because that's sort of the bit of The Simpsons, right? It's been on 35 years, but Lisa's still, oh my God, is she 8 and Bart is 10 or something like that?
something like
They're
that.
still, and Maggie is still a baby.
Right.
So I think kind of the goof is that, you know, there is no, like, plots can just kind of drop off because you start each episode fresh. It's the same set of characters, but there's like there are very few multi-part storylines. We just start with the same set of characters every time.
Yeah. I'm curious to talk about the music. I almost feel like we can talk about all of the musical numbers together because I kind of have the same notes for each one. But Wouldn't It Be Lovely gets turned into Wouldn't Be Adequate. The Rain in Spain.
I had a little giggle.
That's I think probably my favorite of the songs, just because I think opening with that song too, I think really hits that we're like, oh, we're going to be satirizing all of these songs.
It's also such a great I want for Willie.
Yeah.
Of like, Willie's been living in a shack for X number of years. We know that in a flashback, his father told him he was born garbage and he'll always be trash when he was literally a baby, which was pretty funny. So his big dream is not like a room somewhere far away from the cold night air. It's literally just, you know, a room. End of sentence. I truly had a real laugh at Lisa. Of course, he comes to stay at the Simpsons' home, which is how Lisa hatches her plan. And she sees him on her couch and it says, Willie, I hope I'm not being too personal, but you seem resigned to a life of abject squalor.
Oh, we simply must stand Lisa Simpson. She's the best.
She is always an icon and a hero. I don't know when she started talking to my therapist. I really did lose it. That line caught me really off guard. I forgot how, again, it's been a while since I saw the show, and I kind of forgot how Lisa's really the only one that is allowed to be just razor sharp.
Yes.
Everybody else is razor sharp about dumb shit. She's actually just allowed to be quick-witted. And that really, full send. I loved that.
I think it's also very fun and good that Lisa Simpson ends up being the Higgins of this
she
episode.
is the Henry Higgins here.
And her ulterior motive is just to like win the science fair, which she could have done with any other project she would have done. So it doesn't really feel super duplicitous.
Like, this doesn't... What is... I guess I don't know. Anthropology is a social science, and I suppose that involves certain studies of dialect and behavior.
It's certainly an experiment.
It's a goddamn stretch. I mean, it's an experiment. I don't know that if you were to write a scientific abstract that it would be accepted into any major papers, but...
I accept it. I think she deserved to win. Although I did like the surprise meter or
Oh,
whatever.
God, that was really
very
good. That was very good. I forget the little kid's name. The little clever one in the bow tie, who's Lisa's rival. I loved the moderate shock. That was pretty good. I honestly, though, the only thing with that, I wish there'd been a stinger where we saw what happens when it went into red. Because it
it does have a red.
I was waiting for that punch, actually. That kind of annoyed me. Anyway, but with Lisa as Henry Higgins, we get The Rain in Spain turns into What Flows from the Nose, which is a very Simpsons-y, like, let's just take this song and make it dumb as shit.
Yeah. For me, the thing that's really funny with this, too, is that, like, they kind of follow the same formula for every single song of, like, let's just change a couple of these words and keep the melody completely the same and just play it straight.
Well, the melodies are, like, reminiscent, but not completely the same. they're far enough off to avoid rights issues, I think.
Well, I think most of them are pretty one for one, because I don't think they have to worry about rights if it's satire, right?
If it's satire. I know they don't, but they're not quite the same, I don't think.
Okay, maybe that's my memory wrong.
Because definitely the one that is later on the street where you live, the shack where I lived.
Right, that's true. That one is different.
That was pretty... That's a little sideways. It took me a minute to realize exactly what song we were doing. In the... What Flows from the Nose, though, Homer does come in and try to be a part of the song, and they tell him to go off and do his own song, and he kind of does a little bit of going off to church in the morning. What is that one?
Yeah, I'm getting married in the morning. Get me to church on time.
Get me to the church on time,
yeah.
Right? So he kind of does that a little bit to himself with no accompaniment, which I found pretty amusing.
Just to himself, just walking down the stairs.
Just walking down the stairs. But there's also a good gag during What Flows from the Nose where Willie freaks out about a talking mirror, like in a kind of like magical musical moment. The mirror sings back at him and he like smashes it.
So that was especially jarring because just last night we started watching The Fall of the House of Usher, which has been amazing so far. It's the same guy who did Hill House.
But dang, they're all spooky as shit.
Spooky as shit, and they're all Edgar Allan Poe stories.
Yeah.
And the episode I just watched last night was like a lot of smashing mirrors because the mirror is saying other things, right?
Sure. Classic horror.
It was quite gruesome, though. It was like very much like glass shards coming in people's faces. What an interesting thing,
actually, for that to be both a tenet of very happy musicals and of horror.
I think the line between horror and musical is paper thin. They're all magical realism, right?
No, I think you're right. I think one wrong move, one wrong note, and you're you're in a horror movie, or your horror movie is a little too joyful.
Yep.
Who knows?
And then you have Sweeney Todd just sitting right there.
Oh my God, Sweeney Todd currently screaming from his grave. Josh Groban is gonna bust down my door.
I'm still trying to get tickets to that.
Dream.
So expensive.
A dream. Josh Groban. My address is.
Speaking of hot men, Willie becomes a hot, refined gentleman.
Willie becomes G.K. Williamson or some shit like that. Something the third. And shows up to the science fair, a very fancy gala at the school.
And becomes a hit with all the ladies randomly, too.
Yeah, it's a hit with all the ladies, including, most notably, Principal Skinner's mom, who's a horn dog.
Yeah. Love that for her.
Love that for her. And sings I Could Be Indoors All Night.
Oh, such a relatable number, right?
Yeah. I also could be indoors all night. And yeah, Martin is about to win the science fair when Lisa does her big reveal that she has actually... Her experiment was to transform this man. But that's not the end of our episode. It's not just a happy ending for Willie. The rule of The Simpsons is that everything has to go back to status quo by the end of the episode. So he, sings his mournful On the Street Where You Live, which is at the shack where I lived, where he reminisces about his terrible home, which the music teacher is now living in as the new groundskeeper.
Yeah.
The gag where he'd somehow gotten onto the roof with the tractor. Again, like, Simpsons jokes are dumb, but they're almost, like, so fast that there's no...
Yeah.
If they lingered for a second more, that wouldn't have been a funny gag.
Totally.
But because it was so fast, it was pretty good. Yeah, he becomes a maitre d' at a fancy restaurant, but then the people of Springfield are not known for their class. So Willie just longs to be back in his... shack and break free and just be a man of the dirt again and ride his tractor. And so
yeah. And I'm glad he gets that.
He does. Yeah.
Another goof I just want to shout out in the middle of all that is when they cut to the bar with the billboard that's talking at people and it's just saying, "You don't have to look at me. You don't have to look at me." It's so funny to me.
It's so sad. So rude.
It's very like we are not making eye contact with each other that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, because we're both looking at our notes. Yeah, Moses, like, what a sad little man. My partner has a friend that they all call Mo. I did not know that his name was James until like probably a few months into knowing who he was, because when he was a teenager, he looked a little bit like Moses Lack. And they haven't let it go for, it's been well over a decade and a half that they've been calling him this.
You can't let go someone looking somewhat like Mo.
He's in all of our phones as Mo. We went to his wedding and I struggled to call him James in front of his family.
Oh, that must have been shocking.
Yeah, it was absolutely shocking to hear him referred to as James throughout the ceremony.
Yeah.
Anyway, shout out to Mo. Yeah, Mo Sislak, what a guy.
But in terms of the music and the actual songs of this, I think they're all quite pretty good, pretty passable satires.
They're real short. They're so short.
They're
I mean, some of them are like
short.
2 lines. Like, we are just really working off the idea that we have IP that's recognizable enough that we can just sort of riff for a little bit and move on. But also, it's a 20-minute show.
Right. You have to get in and get out.
Yeah.
I feel like the shame of it is that I wish they leaned into it a little bit more. Like, they commit to the plot of My Fair Lady, I think, more than they commit to the idea of this being a musical episode.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I would agree with that, yeah.
But the singing is all pretty solid, you know.
Voice actors. I mean, we run into this again and again. When you get animated casts, usually those voice actors are at least passable singers.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think they're asked to do anything particularly difficult, but they're never distracting and they're always on pitch and always doing exactly what they need to be doing. So I think that's pretty commendable.
Yeah, totally. There is also a funny bit where I guess sort of like in character, the music teacher can't sing that well. And so he kind of gets annoyed at Willie. He's like, what, if I had your voice, I'd talk sing all the time. God.
Right, exactly.
Because, yeah, I think when you're, for all that voice actor is probably a relatively strong singer, there are certain restrictions put on you when you're doing a character voice of a person who has a really nasally and annoying voice. You can't suddenly be an excellent singer.
I think overall, a lot of the jokes land, but some of them really don't age well.
Oof, yeah, I mean, we open on a joke about a trans person. So that's fun.
Yeah.
That was a harsh open for me.
Yeah, I was like, oof, we're back in 06. Okay. Here we are.
I will say also, I didn't find the sadistic gym teacher storyline funny. I didn't find the bombardment thing funny. The repetition didn't work for me. I just kept thinking, this is going on for a long time.
Yeah, I thought bombardment was really funny when he asks Bart if he's okay. And then Bart says yes, and then he goes, okay, and then continues to bombard him. And then after that, it was too much.
Went on for a long old time. There's a callback to it much later on, too. And I was like, God, I'm really done with this man. Can't do this.
Well, I know you've mentioned some of your favorite jokes and gags in it, but are there any others that you want to shout out as moments that really had you laughing?
The stinger where we've let Willie back into his hut and Lisa's made one change and that there's a needlepoint of Home Sweet Home that she made. And he's like, oh, it's beautiful. Can you leave me alone for a moment? And as soon as she leaves, he smashes it on the ground and said, I liked it as it was.
It's very good. I like that.
It was really good. Too. It got me. It was pretty funny. Yeah. But how about you? Anything we're missing on?
I really like when Bart is first talking to Willie and says something about ravines, and Willie goes, don't be tantalizing me with tales about ravines. I thought that's so silly.
Oh, the speaking of just like silly stuff was Willie didn't want to go home with Marge, and he's like, as long as I've got a pan over my head, because Marcy doesn't have a home and it started raining, and it's a colander. It's like, oh, that's where all my soup went.
So dumb. I think exactly at that moment I typed, this show's so stupid.
Yeah, it's a really dumb show. I think it's so interesting. I think I always thought of The Simpsons as like Futurama's sedate cousin, but there's not really anything sedate about it.
No,
it's actually quite crazy and weird. It just happens to be set in suburbia.
Yeah.
So they never clarify what state Springfield is in. It's just in America at an undisclosed Springfield location.
Yeah. I had to, one last shout out, I had to like look this up because I was very confused about the like weird advertisement thing that they were doing in the middle of it with like a guy with his shirt off up against a wall.
God, forgot about that.
Do you remember that?
Like the butt jiggling for a long time.
Apparently that's like a very specific reference to a Calvin Klein ad that was run in the 90s. And I looked it up and it is awful. It is exactly that thing, and it's weird and it's creepy. So shout out that gag, I guess, but I think there was also some queer shaming in that joke as well too. That wasn't great.
Can we get Olivia, can you paste in some audio from that Calvin Klein ad?
Oh my god, you don't want to. It's so bad.
You got a real nice look. How old are you?
21.
What's your name?
August.
Why don't you stand up? It's a nice body. Do you work out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can tell.
It's so bad. Anyway, are we ready to score, Liza? Do you feel good?
I feel ready. Let's go.
Let's do it. All right, Liza, our first category here is kind of a big one we were talking about a little bit towards the end there. General vibe, our enjoyment level, how well does it age? What are your thoughts?
That is so tough with The Simpsons because, again, the jokes per capita on this is off the charts. I mean, The Simpsons, they drop a joke every 4 seconds. Some of them are not good. And some of them really took me out of it. We mentioned that at the top, we have some pretty gross comments about a teacher who comes out as trans to his classroom. We've got a little bit of queer shaming, possibly, in that blue pants advertisement. Yes. And then we've got... There's later in I could have been indoors all night. I think he says I could be indoors all night and not feel like a fruit. Mm-hmm. It's also just wild to claim that being inside all night is something only gay people do.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. I think it has so much more to do, really. Yeah, it has so much more to do, I think, with like Willie's form of masculinity, which is so aggressively like outdoorsy and traditionally masculine, and he like never showers and he's disgusting. And I think that sort of has more to do with Willie and his own insecurities than anything else, but it's not needed. You could have found another rhyme.
Yeah. On your point, I think there's like kind of a lot of gross masculinity in this episode. Like Krusty with his date is pretty gross. The like
I forgot about charity titties or whatever.
Yeah, and Willie
charity
like putting boink slut in his calendar.
Okay, I did laugh. It is bad. It is extremely bad. I did laugh. It's so
Liza,
bad.
No.
Using the phrase boink is always gonna get me. I'm sorry.
Fair enough. But anyway, on top of all of those things, it doesn't age well in that sense. I do think I enjoy this episode more than I don't enjoy it.
Same. I think, again, the speed of the jokes makes some of these more forgivable because we don't really linger ever on anything. Therefore, we don't linger for a long time in an overly misogynist joke space. It is 2006. Mistakes were made. Anyway,
I'm thinking like
George Bush was still the president, just by the way.
Oh my God.
George W. Bush. Sorry to bring him up. Absolute trigger warning. I should not have done that.
I feel like a 6 maybe pushing a 7.
Yeah, I think a 6 makes sense. I enjoyed it more than I didn't enjoy it, but it does have real issues.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's talk about the music. How did you feel about the music in this episode? Obviously, they're just taking the music from My Fair Lady, but putting their own lyrics and a little bit of their own musical orchestration to it. Yeah, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's not inventive, right? So I'm going to count it as found, I think, scores wise, just because they are working from, even if they are playing with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't really talked about that, the found versus like original music and where parody music falls on that scale.
It's a good point. I think the best version of like satirizing a song can still rank super high because I think there's a lot of invention that comes with that, and I think it's almost a different skill than original composition.
That is what Weird Al Yankovic would say, and I thank you for standing up for him in this moment.
But like that's a great point. I think what Weird Al does is very good for the type of thing that he does. And I don't think this is like quite close to that level. I think like especially the Adequate song is like very good, but I don't think any of the songs get better than that for me.
No, to me, they actually sort of went downhill after that.
Yeah.
I think there was actually, for me, a distinct downhill progression as the episode went on. So, yeah, I mean, at the risk of sounding ridiculous, I kind of say 6 again.
Yeah, I think a 6 is fair.
Yeah.
Next category, lyrics. Kind of a similar place with this. But yeah, what did you think about the lyrics for this one?
I think they're their in world is like dumb and Simpsons-y, you know, like, of course, we're going to make the rain in Spain and joke about your boogers.
Yes.
Right?
Classic.
Like, this is not a highbrow show. Sort of ironic for taking this Pygmalion storyline on this unbelievably lowbrow show.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's like an adaptation of an adaptation.
Yeah, it's like very odd, but
yeah, I think it's probably better than the music, but not by a lot. I think
a lot.
a similar problem. We just want more of it. I know it's a short runtime, but you had all of the Bart stuff that you didn't really need in this episode that could have been dedicated to more music.
We could have destroyed Willie's house in any number of ways. We didn't need this weird side quest for Bart at the beginning of the episode. So yeah, I'd say a 7.
Yeah,
Feeling
7.
a 7.
I think we're on the same page there. Dancing. There was almost no dancing. There's dancing in Indoors All Night.
And there's a little bit in the Nose song. He spins the kids around.
Not on my clothes. Yeah.
But it's really very minimal.
Mm-hmm. The most I enjoyed the dancing, if we would call it dancing, is Homer walking down the stairs singing.
He was having the best time in this.
Yeah.
Also, I'm sorry, him just throwing his pants on a go-kart. I did get a good chuckle out of it. It worked.
I forgot about that.
Butt
I'm going to get my
funny.
50 laps in.
I giggled. I had a good giggle. But yeah, it's really low. This is going to be like a 2 or a 3, right? Like,
yeah, I think a 2 is fair.
Sure.
Next we have performance. Obviously that includes vocal performance and acting performance. Yeah, what are your thoughts there, Liza?
Okay, so in terms of performance, I think something that to consider is that on The Simpsons, most of our actors play multiple characters. We kind of have the same like core cast of like 8 to 10 folks who do all of the Simpsons characters essentially. There are those some who've gone on to do other more on-screen stuff, like Hank Azaria is probably the one I can always pick out of the lineup. He does Coach Krupt in this, the mean coach. But Dan Castellaneta, I just want to give a bit of a shout out to because he has to sing both as Homer and as Willie, and he has to speak to himself as Homer and as Willie a few times in this episode. And I think it's relatively hard to clock that it's the same person.
And I think on top of that too, he has to do Willie singing, and then he has to do Willie being more proper singing.
That's very true.
It all comes off. I think he does honestly quite a great job.
That is a very good point. Yeah, so I just wanted to shout out that Dan Castellaneta is really, really pulling us forward on this one.
and everybody pulls their own weight. Whenever somebody has a singing line, they're very much singing in their character's voice, which I always appreciate. Like you were saying before, voice actors, they're pros. They're so good at what
pros.
they do, and they often are pretty good at singing. So I would rank this pretty highly. I think the only thing it doesn't have for me is that it's all pretty simple to sing melodically.
Sure. Yeah, we've got no like harmonies or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm thinking like an 8.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was at.
Great.
Let's talk about the writing of this episode. A little bit all over the place, like we were saying before, but what were your thoughts on the writing
It's
overall?
all over the place, but that is the tone of this show.
Right.
This show is all over the place. It's very much, you throw spaghetti at a wall in this writer's room, I think.
Yes.
There are a couple moments where it's like notably a bit slower. Like I just felt like that whole scene with the ad exec was like so much longer than most scenes for some reason. And since it's our B plot, and since I didn't get that they were parodying a Calvin Klein ad from 2006 that I don't remember extremely well, I'm so sorry to the advisors.
I think it's
Calvin
from
Klein.
even older. I think it's from 95 is the
Oh my
ad.
God. Okay.
Yeah.
Not exactly topical. So I do think there are moments, and again, we talked about how the first 3 minutes basically don't contribute to the episode. So I think, you know, there's so much you can get away with when you're, the tone of your show is that it's zany, but, a little more focus might have been appreciated, especially if you're going to do such a big effort on your A plot to take a multi-hour musical and condense it to 20 minutes. So
Yep. I think similarly to general vibe, I like it more than I dislike it. I really like the concept of let's have Lisa Simpson teach Willie how to be more refined. Like that's the way we're integrating My Fair Lady into this. But yeah, I don't think it's perfect to say the least.
Definitely not. I'm really thinking like a 6 or
Yeah.
a 7. Yeah.
I feel that. Direction. A little bit of a similar thing to writing, of course, too, but we're thinking about how things are framed, how things are animated, the transitions and all that. Where do you land on this, Liza?
Simpsons has some they do, and we've talked about this kind of joke before, but those quick gags, I think there is something very clever about how quick they cut things. I think their editing team is really excellent, but that also comes in animation. That is so much the direction and the animating team specifically. So, yeah, again, certain scenes wouldn't work if they were a second longer.
There's a part of me that wishes I had watched My Fair Lady more recently and been able to recognize them copying certain sets or framings. Like, I'm sure the science fair looks similar to whatever ball they have, but nothing struck me as like very musical theater-y looking or like movie musical looking, except for the bit with Homer thinking about his blue jeans and the, neon lights, which I think bumps up this direction quite a bit. Just that one
That was the
sequence.
strongest directorial moment by absolute miles. Was like rainbow of pants, but not blue.
So
the escalation
good.
of those signs also was really funny. I mean,
It's
like
super funny.
right up to like blue pants jazz cafe. We don't sell blue pants.
And Homer's face during it, I love
Just
that.
like the sad Charlie Brown walk away. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that they take many like real strides. I think that they pretty much stay within their wheelhouse. I don't think that there is really anything about almost anything, I should say, about the direction of this that is very music based. So, I feel like this is just getting a lot of middling scores, but I feel okay with like a 5 or a 6 again.
I might bump it to a 6 for this, or maybe even to a 7, just because of that one sequence. I really love that
It's really
sequence.
strong. It's really fucking funny.
But let's go with a 6. I think that's fair. Commitment. How much do they commit to the idea of this being a musical? How many songs are there? All that good stuff. We've talked about this already, but yeah, Liza, where are you falling with this?
Oof. I mean, it's tough, right? Because we talked that they do a good like kind of number of songs, but they're extremely short. We still have our B and C plots that are happening, so we're not spending all of our time on this. So like net total, I'd say we probably have only about 15 minutes in which to scrunch it all in.
I mean, I stand by what I said before in that I think they commit to the idea of doing My Fair Lady more than they commit to the idea of doing a musical episode. And I think that docks a few points for me, at least. I just wish these songs were just a little bit longer, you know?
I think I wish we involved more characters. I mean,
Yeah,
My
that's
Fair
true,
Lady
too.
is not just Henry and Eliza going back and forth. You know, there's that suitor whose name I can't remember.
There's that one character.
That
There's
one
that
guy,
other character.
and then there's other characters,
Freddie.
and I'm
Freddie's his
sure
name.
there's an ensemble. But, you know, we got no ensemble bits. We really only have Lisa and Willie singing, and then very briefly the music teacher, right? Like, I do think we could have made more of an effort to have everyone contribute, really.
Yeah, that being said, you know, they did find inventive ways to integrate this into the narrative, both musically and thematically. I still feel like it's maybe a 4 or 5 for me.
Yeah, I'm thinking 5. I think they kind of went halfway there. I think they had kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yes, I think that's right. Now, stakes, this category is kind of interesting for this one. Is it a game changer for the show in any way? What are the stakes for the characters?
I mean, the stakes are really the thing about these animated shows, and this tends to be their Achilles heel for our purposes, is that the stakes. I mean, Principal Skinner says we return to status quo at the end of the show. We always do. That is the rule. So it's sort of hard to judge it on a stakes scale because the stakes are the only time things don't return to status quo are Treehouse of Horror episodes. And those are given special dispensation.
But I think you're hitting on a bit of the problem is that, like, when we came up with this category, we want the idea of the musical episode to feel special, to feel like it matters in some kind of way to the show overall. And it's always, of course, hard to say with something like The Simpsons or any kind of animated show or even a sitcom where things reset. But it doesn't feel like a special or unique experience for The Simpsons.
It doesn't
for
feel
them
like
to be
a
singing.
landmark episode. Like,
Yeah.
even if the stakes are going to be that we return to form at the end of it, I don't see like a special ad campaign, you know, for this week on The Simpsons. We
That's
do, right? Like, so if maybe stakes for the purposes of this are, is it special? I don't think it is. I don't think we do anything that's not really within our... We don't do anything that's out of our purview,
Yeah,
I don't think.
that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, maybe like a 2 or a 3 then.
Yeah, let's give it a 3.
All right. And then personal ranking. We'll average our scores, of course. But overall, how did this episode do for you as a musical episode?
God, I don't know.
We've broken her. We've stumped her. No more episodes. She's done.
She's out of juice, man. I don't know. I think I enjoyed this as an episode of TV. I don't know that I'd really refer to it as a musical episode 100%. Again, I enjoyed it more than I didn't enjoy it. I got several good chuckles in there. There is a reason the show's been on the air for 35 years. 35 Gregorian years. Do we use the Gregorian calendar or do we use the Augustinian calendar?
We use the Gregorian, I think.
Thank you.
Watch me be completely wrong.
Watch when we're both wrong. Like, we don't use either of those calendars. It's been on for 1 million years. There are 755 episodes, a whopping number of episodes.
Too many. It's too many.
It's arguably too many, but yeah, I had a fine time. I was left sort of, you know, my life wasn't improved.
I think there is that one My Fair Lady fan who like loves this episode. Like,
Sure.
I'm sure this really hits for a very specific audience, and we are so adjacent to that audience, and it's not quite hitting. Is the thing that I think takes me away
We are
from it.
just so barely out of that Venn diagram.
Yeah,
Just we're on the edge of it.
really. Should we say our rankings at the same time?
Sure, why not?
All right, count us down.
3, 2, 1, 4.
Whoa.
Oh.
Okay, so 5.
Yeah, that's fine.
That puts
works
us
for
right in
me.
the middle.
All right, so with a 54 out of 100, ouch, as its final score, Simpsons episode My Fair Laddy is currently in 4th place out of the 4 musicals we've done. I'm not overly worried about this because The Simpsons will have so many more opportunities to climb up higher on this list.
So many opportunities. There's a ton of these on our list. But next week, we'll see you once more with Season 7, Episode 3 of The Office, entitled Andy's Play.
Ooh, very exciting. You can find this episode on Peacock.
Thank you, as always, to Olivia Braslovsky, our angelic audio architect, and to Sakina Powell, our debonair digital designer.
And if you like the show, please be sure to rate and review us. And if you don't, keep that to yourself, please. You can find us on Instagram at Once More with TV or contact us using the information in the show notes.
And
And
scene.
scene.